Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting in Muscatine County, Monday, November 25th, 2019. I will call the meeting to order. First item of business is to review our agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Scott has moved, or Jeff has moved rather, Santos has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 3 is receive comments from the public. Anyone here from the public wanting to address the board on a subject not already on our agenda, please step up to the podium. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, presentation on Diversity Services Center of Iowa with Educational Outreach Program Coordinator Rosa Mendoza. Good morning.
Can I stand?
Yes, please.
First, I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here today and to present to you the Diversity Service Center of Iowa, also known as DSCI. Joining me today, I have Mike Bicklin, who is one of our board members of the Diversity Service Center of Iowa. The Diversity Service Center of Iowa opened its doors back on March 1st of 2001. We have just celebrated our 18th anniversary this year, so we're excited of how long we've been here in Muscatine. The Diversity Service Center of Iowa manages 2 programs. One of them is the Educational Outreach, in which I will speak more of today, and also the Minority Senior Citizens Program. Both programs that have been implemented due to the increase in the needs of our community, diverse population. We are located at 1514 Isaac Avenue, suite number 2 here in Muscatine. And I will be also giving you a copy of my slideshow that I have here. I do apologize for not bringing anything prior to that. With the educational outreach, we are able to assist the public on immigration issues. And our mission is to be able to provide services on immigration and to advocate for senior citizens ages 60 plus. Our purpose is to improve the quality of life through economic development by providing education, information, and social services to the public. And we service people from different nationalities here, not only in Muscatine, but in the surrounding communities of Muscatine. The Educational Outreach Program, the Diversity Service Center of Iowa, has received recognition and staff accreditation by the U.S. Department of Justice to provide services to individuals and representing them before the immigration offices, not the immigration courts, but the immigration offices. So what we do at the Educational Outreach is that we provide consultations. We assist individuals by filling out their forms, their immigration forms, preparing them. If they just need the forms, then we provide the forms for them. We also represent them before all immigration offices. It could be with the National Visa Center, it could be with our Des Moines office, local office here in the state, which would be in Des Moines, Chicago, depending on which office this individual has their case in, so then we are able to assist them. We also are able to provide loans we have partnered up with the Centra Credit Union to provide loans for them just for immigration processes. So we are able to do that it's a 3.15% interest rate. And so for individuals who are struggling financially to continue their immigration process, this gives them that opportunity to continue without interruptions of their immigration process. So we're very fortunate to have that partnership with the Central Credit Union here in Muscatine. So far we have, like I mentioned, not only do we provide immigration services to Muscatine, but our surrounding communities. We service the eastern part of Iowa and western part of Illinois. So we have people that we bring in from different communities. So far, this year, we've brought in individuals from 32 communities in the state of Iowa. And let me go ahead and pass that information to you here. I have. And from 17 different nationalities. So I'm just gonna, if it's okay to pass this information to you. So you can have an idea of our geographic area that we service. So we do bring individuals from different communities. So when we talk about economic impact, when they come here, since we do have some people that drive up to 3 hours to come for our services. So they also invest here before they leave, And so we're just happy that we are able to have that economic impact by providing this type of service. Immigration's process can be intimidating, especially for individuals that don't have no idea, what the process is like. We have that opportunity to guide them through. We have the opportunity to let them know that, what their options are when they come into our community. As you know, we also have had an increase of our Liberian population. At this time, we have about 1,000, I think is the population at this time. I have spoken, I don't know how many of you know the president of our Liberia community here in Muscatine, but it's Mr. John Bia, and he has told me that they are about 1,000. The average about at least 8 individuals per family that are here in our Muscatine area. And so we're just happy that we are able to also help them in regards to their immigration process. Some of them come in through different types programs that have come in as refugees. They have come in under the lottery visa. And so we are able to guide them as to what their next step is when they come into our office. So we're just happy to be here, to be able to make a difference for our families, giving them that peace of mind, guiding them through, letting them know what the next steps are going to be and how much it's going to be for them. Definitely, we know our limits when we are not able, during a consultation, when we know that they will need an immigration attorney, we will definitely refer them to our immigration attorney that's here in Muscatine, Summer Olchen. And so we are able to then make a referrals to her so that she may continue to help them out. The outcome, what is the outcome? What is the benefit? When an individual improves their status here in the United States, they are able to obtain employment authorization document. After that, they can then apply for a social security number. And after a social security number, are able to go for, apply for employment. And then also their driver's license, open a bank account. For some, maybe continue their secondary education, depending, I don't know if you're aware, but a lot of our students that graduate, if they don't have a legal status, then they can't continue their process. And so we were fortunate to help all those students that qualified under the DACA program to be able to assist them so then they may continue for their secondary education through that program. We also are able to not only help them through that, but through word of mouth, we are able to bring in more individuals into our community. Our main focus is legalization, making sure that these individuals are going through proper processes. Unfortunately, there's a lot of fraud out there. And they've had bad experiences. They've spent thousands of dollars trying to get legalized. And unfortunately, due to the fraud, have not accomplished it. But we are here. We are here to help them out. through that program and walk them all the way until they receive their documents. We usually have either the person, the applicant, or their spouses or family members that come and apply for them. It's either through family petitions. Maybe we have many of those that are legal permanent residents. These are individuals that are authorized, have immigration authorization to live and work permanently in the United States. Those legal permanent residents at some point decide that they would like to become a citizen of the United States. We help them renew their documents. If they're expiring, they would expire every 10 years. Or we help them become a naturalized citizen of the United States. After they become a naturalized citizen of the United States, then they are able to vote and become active members of our community during elections. So, in a nutshell, we talk about the improvements, helping our community, but also impacting our community in different ways.
Rosa, can I ask, what are the, I don't know if there's an average, but in terms of length of time and cost of becoming or applying to become a legal permanent resident, from there becoming a naturalized citizen, what do those time frame and cost ranges look like?
Okay, for an individual that's applying to become, depending if they are being petitioned from a family member, if it's the legal permanent resident petitioning for their spouse, that could take 2 years or more than 2 years, depending what country you're from. The government gives a certain amount of visa numbers to individuals depending by country. So some of them could take maybe even longer. Some of them could take even up to 5 years. It also depends how you entered the United States. If you entered without authorization, it could take longer. If you entered with a tourist visa and then overstayed your visa, but you remain here in the United States and you marry a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident, then you can apply within the United States. And that process could be probably 8 months. Okay.
And the cost?
The cost in regards to that immigration, to become a legal permanent resident here in the United States, that cost could be $1,000 to $1,500 just for the immigration process. That does not count for our services. We do have a minimal fee that we charge for our services for immigration process. So you can tell it could probably even run up to $3,000 altogether.
What is your fee?
Our fees, depending on what kind of a packet, our fee could be $900 for that kind of a process, depending on how many forms are involved in each case. Each case could be different. Like I said, if somebody entered with a tourist visa, then their case is going to be different than someone that entered without authorization, because then that person that entered without authorization will have to take another route, go through the National Visa Center, and will have to leave the United States.
And what would an attorney charge for that same process?
An attorney can charge anything between $5,000 for that kind of a process, $3,000 to $5,000.
Wow.
So it does make a difference, and that's why we see individuals coming to our office because all the referrals are by word of mouth. And so when they see that there's an economic difference, when you go to an immigration attorney, not everybody needs an immigration attorney. And people think, oh, if I get an immigration attorney, the process is going to go faster. Well, that's not the case. Once it falls in immigration hands, it's up to the officer to decide, the type of process it's going to take and how long it will take.
And how do individuals connect with your services, or how do they find out about you? Or
It's always been by word of mouth. We do try to promote it through our Facebook, let people know about the updates. As you know, it's continuously changing. Our policies are continually changing, and so what we do is we do it through Facebook. We have their information there, and then everything else is by word of mouth, actually.
Do you have any idea how many folks you've helped become naturalized in your 18 years of operation?
Ooh,
Just a ballpark, I'm not gonna
yeah.
question.
Hundreds,
Wow.
I think, in
That's
regards
just with the
to,
naturalization.
just with the
Right.
naturalization. We have serviced over, I would say, we're getting close to 4,000 cases that we've taken. Now, when we've taken a case, you have to realize, because with naturalization, it's not only naturalization, it's also citizenship. Once a parent becomes a naturalized citizen of the United States, and they have children that are under 18 years of age, then the children can gain citizenship under the parent. And so we have parents coming back and say, okay, I have my child, they're 16 years old, and now I want them to gain their citizenship under me. And so then we are able to do that process, and the child, at that time, the child's a legal permanent resident, and then we're able to help them become citizens. And so the children gain citizenship. So we're looking at citizenship and naturalization at the same time. So we're just happy. I wanted to show you, I have information for you. I'm sorry. Okay, this is our information about the center, and it has our newsletter, our brochure. And then this is a document that we also use for individuals that come into our office. So I'm going to go ahead and give you that too. I might have some extra ones here, I don't know, but we're covered too. There's some that can pass it along. This is a document that we use for every individual that has an appointment. And so we are able to really get some demographic information of the people we service. And it's just amazing, that's why we could tell where they're coming from, their nationality, how many members are in the family. And so we're just very fortunate, like I said, to be able to get this information. And I felt that it was time for us to be here with you. Time for us to let you know what's going on in Muscatine. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Diversity Service Center, but like I said, sometimes we're that kept secret behind the scenes. And we're doing quite a bit of a work, and we're just happy to make a difference. We are one of 8 centers in the state of Iowa that have received accreditation and recognition from the U.S. Department of Justice. As accredited representatives, we need to be renewing our accreditation every 3 years. And so we are able to do that. We receive our immigration trainings through webinars, through immigration attorneys that is provided for us. And so we do our best to make sure that we're guiding individuals legally, because that's our focus, is legalization, making a difference and making sure that everybody is who is eligible. We might have some that might not be eligible, but those that are eligible, we will definitely be able to help them out.
And you've been in Muscatine for 18 years?
Yes, the Diversity Service Center opened its doors on March 1st of 2001. I myself have been providing the same services and directing the same 2 programs for the last 25 years.
Have you always been at the same address?
No, we used to be at, on that old Medical Arts building on Sycamore
Sure.
Street, 119
Got it.
Sycamore Street.
Okay.
And then I did want to just point out in regards to our Minority Senior Citizens Program. Actually, that program started, both of the programs started back in the 90s. But it was some state funds that had been received to provide a Hispanic meal site. And so I was approached, wanted to know if we could help out. They had seen an increase, Latinos in our community, and so Milestones, which now it's Milestones Area Agency on Aging. Back then it was Generations Area Agency on Aging. They approached us and said, we have some state funds, can you help us? So we ended up assisting them. We coordinated a meal site, and we still coordinate that meal site twice a month from March to November. And then they came back to us and said, we have some state funds to provide case management, help individuals with social services, filling out forms, helping them through Social Security, helping them with Medicare Part D, depending on what their needs were. And so maybe it was helping them get into the seniors' apartments, so filling out forms for them, being that some of them have limited to non-English speaking skills. And so this year, we have serviced 74 seniors so far, and we're just happy that we are here. Both programs, as you can see, for the state of Iowa, back in the early 90s, the Latino population continued to increase. And so then that became the need, what do we do? And I saw at that time the need to provide immigration services. And we continue to see that. I have the New American Economic, it's called the Contributions of New Americans in Iowa. And we continue to see an increase of our diverse population in our state, and I foresee that in the coming few, years. So we're just happy to be here. I felt that it was very important that you know what we do. And that you can always, I would like to extend an invitation to each one of you to come and visit our office. You will be amazed of all the artifacts that we have received from the people from around the world.
Could you explain the fraudulent part that you were talking about?
Yes. What happens, and usually this is in the bigger cities, which in like Chicago. We have there were individuals that would say, okay, I'm gonna help you get employment authorization. And so they would start, going out to the streets, putting flyers, we're gonna help you get your employment authorization. And people thought, that, okay, this person knows what they're doing. So they go with them and they'll have an appointment with the individual, they'll charge them. The last one that I knew of was charging $800 to each individual just for an employment authorization document. He would take all their information, their birth certificates, all their information, but never submitted the application to immigration. They do that for 1 month and then they take off. And the the individuals, all these families are going back to the location wondering, okay, this person's not answering my calls, this person, every time I go, the doors aren't open anymore, but that's what they do. And it's very, very unfortunate. We did have a case once that to where people did get their employment authorizations, and then they were being denied because it was not a complete process. So we found out that someone outside and someone from the immigration office were working together. And that's how they were able to get those employment authorizations. But they were called, the investigator told me that they were called skeleton cases, to where it was just a certain amount of information being submitted. And so it's very hard for individuals to then go out and trust somebody else to assist them. So we're just happy that we are able to give them that peace of mind and know that they can trust us. And, we will be honest with them. We will let them know if they have, what options they have, and if they don't have any options. We will definitely let them know.
Anybody else? Thank you folks so much for coming. We appreciate the work you do. Come back anytime, tell us about it. And is there a good time or an event in particular you recommend we come to when we visit?
Any morning. I'm there every morning, Monday through Friday, so just feel free to stop by, in the mornings. Usually there by 8:30 in the morning, so if you want to stop by, please feel free. I definitely welcome each and every one of you.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank
May
you.
I have a couple
Yes,
of comments?
please. Yes, please.
You want me to be there?
Yeah, if you'd like to. That'd be great.
Then you can be on TV.
That's all I need.
Strive for, right?
Yeah, I'm Mike Bateman, I'm a retired United Methodist pastor. I just wanted to address 4 points that Rosa brought up, and add a little bit more to it. One of them has to do with the success rate of our work. We are approaching 99.9% success rate in all the applications we've sent in over our 20-some years. And the only ones that we didn't get were not because of an error we made, but there was an error on it, or there was information that was incorrect, and we knew that and told the clients that, but they wanted to have it applied anyway. So it was not because of anything we did that it was denied. And that's an incredible, there are not too many who can claim that kind of a percentage. We would love to be able to have enough money to publicize what we're doing. So we don't. So the word of mouth literally is the way people find out about it. We don't have a publicity budget at all. Just wanted to have you know that that's
Well,
the
there's at
case.
least 3 or 4 people watching right now, you can tell.
Go for it. Thank you. And Rosa said the process is incredibly complicated. For those of us who are citizens in this country, who know English, who went to civics class, it would be profoundly complicated for us. So imagine what it's like when you come from another country. You don't speak English very well and don't know our processes. It's just incredibly, I mean, I've got a master's degree and it's complicated for me. It would be for any one of us profoundly complicated. And Rosa knows it just about as well as any immigration attorney does. She just knows what all the ins and outs are. I know several immigration attorneys, and one of them makes a presentation for an hour and a half, and my mind goes, wow, just in terms of what all has to be gone through on that. And then there's the preacher in me. The preacher in me, besides the economic impact, which is really far more profound than most of us realize, not just from our work, but from the presence of immigrants in our community. Besides that, there is that profound enrichment that comes from being able to have the diversity there and embrace those uniquenesses from those different kind of cultures, and that enriches all of us by doing that. That's one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing, is just to enrich our community. So thank you very much for listening to us and letting me amend what she said. I don't have to amend that much, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, thank you very much for coming. Folks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Give them a chance to move up. Item number 5, items with Mike Nolan of Horizon Architecture. 5A update on the county maintenance facility project. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. So as you can see, dirt is moving. We actually have gotten through most of the excavation, and they're working on most of the backfill is complete at this point, and the strip footer has been poured in place, and we should be getting foundation walls poured as of today. Quick update, so obviously this was the biggest concern we had, not knowing what the site condition was going to be. After initial stripping of the site, we had their geotechnical Terracon come out to verify the condition of the site. What they found across the site was varying compaction, but I would say that the worst they found was a 2,000 pounds per square foot bearing capacity as the natural soil sat. Based off of our performance criteria of 1,500 pounds per square foot, we opted to go ahead and continue. Terracon recommended that we strip the entire site down 8 feet and bring everything back. We thought that was a little excessive, so we opted not to do that. What we did do is we had them excavate an extra 12 inches underneath the footer and then an extra 6 inches underneath the slab, come back with compacted fill underneath that. That would allow us, if for whatever reason we found a soft spot during that excavation or that compaction and backfill, we'd be able to identify that. To this point, we've had no issues with any of the footers. I don't anticipate we'll have anything underneath the slab. That will be covered under the unit cost. My anticipation is that will probably be an additional cost of around $10,000 to $15,000 by the time it's done. We felt like that was probably a fair compromise rather than stripping the entire site down, which we understood where they were coming from is trying to hedge their liability for it, but we felt we were covered and understanding what was going on with the site. And everything that we excavated out, there was no organic material, there was no debris or anything along that line. It was just, if you had a previously disturbed site, you're gonna have a little bit of differences based off of the way the material went back in. So we are more or less past that. Once we get through the remainder of the backfill, then we'll be able to come and figure out what that reconciliation is for the unit cost. But at this point, I think that's all good news, particularly considering we were dealing with a site that previously had homes and, you know, who knows what else on it. So, all good news as far as that goes. That being said, we are on schedule. The plan is to get foundations put in. After that, there's gonna be a lot of work getting under slab plumbing and electrical put in, with the goal of having the slab poured and in place right before Christmas.
Mike, are we seeing more black dirt or clay, or what are we seeing as far as compaction, as far as the dirt that we're running into that you just talked about?
So what we're coming out with in the areas that was previously disturbed is we're actually seeing a lot of manufactured sand, which is what actually the city recommends or specifies for just about all of their backfill underneath the streets. So again, looking at the part of our decision-making here was looking at not just what the compaction criteria was, but what the actual material that was coming out. And what we found was there was material that was previously installed, again, this is their engineer looking at it, saying that they couldn't sign off on a previously prepared site if they weren't in charge of the compaction. Well, that's been there since 1996. It's had asphalt over top of it. It's had vehicles over top of it. Looking at, again, with their generally the findings of the worst spots they found only had a 2,000 PSF bearing capacity, which again was above the requirement for the building we're putting on there. We felt comfortable with moving forward. Additionally, as they're going back through and now recompacting the subgrade, going underneath the footers and everything will go underneath the slab, that's getting rechecked. And at this point, as of Friday when we stopped by, everything was coming in very good. So we are in great shape.
How far are we doing the depth for that, for the 2,000? Where are they going down 6 inches, or are they going down?
So underneath the footers, the total excavation is about 60 inches, and that's gonna get her, basically the bottom of the footer will be 42 inches below grade, and then another 18 inches below that with our now compacted fill. Originally, we had specified at least 6 inches of compacted fill, but we decided to go an extra foot just to see, you know, if we were looking at, we found a spot. Sometimes on sites like this, you'll find, hey, everything looks great until you hit the one spot where there was a privy or something along that line. What we felt that would do is we would over excavate just a little bit, see if there were any other lingering issues underneath there. And at this point, after full excavation, we haven't had any issues whatsoever.
Item B.
I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I-
Just the possible action to approve the service order for construction phase photography.
Yes, okay, so I've previously been asked to investigate the possibility of doing drone photography or something along that line for this project. I went and did some research and wanted to figure out the best way to provide this service for you. Essentially, to be a licensed commercial drone photographer or to bring somebody else in to do that, I need to get an FAA certification, which I can go ahead and tie on my previous aviation career. Not a big deal, but just making sure I have all I's dotted and T's crossed. Essentially, what we need to do is be able to offset some of the cost of the equipment to do the photography, but then also to get that licensure. What I'm proposing here is essentially for the lump sum fee of $2,500, that would cover basically me acquiring that capability within my business. I looked at another option to have somebody else come in and do the weekly photography. That was probably gonna come out to about $200 a week, over the course of, another 4 or 5 months in the project. We'd probably be looking at an additional $4,000 to $5,000 for that. I feel like this is a pretty good compromise, a win-win that will not just get we'll call an electrical optical, basically like a picture, but also a drone that has the ability to do thermal imaging. That's gonna come in handy not just on this project, but also for assessment of the jail roof, which we're getting ready to do, some assessment on the deputies' quarters. We start to continue the facility assessment on that. and other projects we have down the road. The nice thing about thermal imaging, in addition to just kind of electrical, optical, or taking pictures, is we can start to see how well is insulation put in on the jail roof in particular. That'll be one we'll be able to see if there's any cold spots where, kind of specify or pinpoint if there are any leaks or things along that line. I know it seems like it's a little bit of upfront cost, but what this will do is essentially add the capability for future projects to really do much more in-depth analysis.
I completely agree with it. I didn't even know you could do thermal imaging on that though. I did not know that. That's a huge added value for us.
So in addition to just doing the photography, what I did is we'll go and have basically a regimented cataloging of that, and then provide that with the closeout documents. So you have the face photography throughout, but then those we'll say comparative. So when we finish the project, we'll have thermal images at that point in the project. We can come back when we get into the heating season again and do basically some reference and baseline. And then in the future, if we start to have issues or it comes time for maintenance, we can kind of take a look and see over time how things are performing and see if there's any, particularly if there's an insulation problem or if we start to have any other issues. What the goal would be maybe then is to take that with all the projects we're doing, is to have that as a baseline, portion of the documentation that we carry on moving forward.
Where's the drone coming from? Do you have one?
I will be acquiring the said drone.
That's included in this?
Yeah, that basically, I was looking at a couple different options. This isn't the entire cost of the drone, but this will help defray some of the cost of that. The actual drone is gonna be around $3,500.
That has IR capability.
Has IR capability, yeah. They have some less expensive versions, but I think, from what I've read in reviews, there's a certain brand out there that's highly recommended. I think it's worth sharing the cost to get the better option versus just getting something that'll kind of get the job done, but essentially set for the future.
So I guess I'm a little confused, I'm sorry. Are you proposing that $2,500 will include you buying the drone?
So for $2,500, I'll provide the service of all the photography and the aerial photography, and essentially the drone will become my equipment. It's just what I'm asking for is if you're wondering where that number came from, part of it's
So you're paying for the drone then under this?
Yes, so, yeah, no, I'm not asking for additional, essentially just, yeah, well, if you want, that'd be fine. But I thought that to provide you the service, this is just what I need to do to get someone up to do that.
I think from the future standpoint, that's a big plus for us, because I want to be able to continue to provide updates to the public of what we're doing, be able to show really what kind of work we're having. And, it's easy from one perspective because we know a lot, but for the public, they can't see that. And from the beginning to the end, that's a huge thing that I think the added value is as far as, plus, we start talking about, inspections and things that, you're removing the safety factor for going up on the roofs, looking at some of these things. I mean, the rental cost for a JLG, things like that we'd have to go out for an inspection, you get that from a drone. And nobody's up there, no labor, no cost, no rental fees. That drone capability is huge from an impact for us as a county in regards to that. The future type goal that I think we're gonna have in our discussions for goal setting as we go into the next budget year is looking at how do we provide that information that you're doing and project updates on our website as well too.
Okay.
That will allow you talked about the other projects. Well then, with us being able to share that information, either it being on our website to be able to say, hey, here's all the projects that the county's working on, and here's pictures to show their progress or projects completed in 2018, 2019, and moving forward. I completely feel like I'm willing to make that motion to approve that.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have, we have a couple of situations when we had the straight line winds a couple of years ago, and I think we had rooftop damage that we were unaware of. This way you could get some kind of a video document that said this is where we were. If we have events like that, it makes it more, I've walked roofs before, I don't wanna walk the courthouse, particularly not the dome up there. Those are difficult to monitor, and also they're protecting pretty significant assets of ours, so it seems like a very reasonable cost. I'd second them. Would you
Well,
already
Doug
say?
said, yeah,
Doug seconded,
Santos moved, Doug
I think
seconded.
it makes good sense, and I think that's a reasonable cost.
We have a lot of buildings.
We have a lot of,
Well, I mean, just the IR capabilities, that to me
Yeah.
I mean, you see a cost going up on, heating cost, and yet you're looking at, well, what's going on? Are we losing some R factor in something? And you can see, cold spots on stuff like that.
Is my
That's-
insulation wet?
is my
We
insulation.
Probably
We-
would have seen that spot in the
We,
jail.
we could have seen that,
With an
and you would have
IR.
been able to say, hey, right away, there's something here that we need to start capitalizing 2 years from now, or a year from now. I mean, there's things that we can look at that you can see, all right, this is really, this is what we started with, and then that history we also have as a baseline, and then 20 years from now, oh, wow, we still are meeting the same factor, we're losing something. I think that right there in itself sells itself much more, not to mention the safety factor from putting our county employees at risk of inspections and things like that for going up on the roofs.
It's a really inexpensive portion of preventive maintenance is what it is.
Correct. It's upfront investment in what I look at it.
Great. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the service order for use of the master agreement between owner and architect, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All ayes, motion is approved.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
5C is discussion and possible action to approve COR number 1 for custom color panels for the Muscatine County Maintenance Facility Project in the amount of $10,061.70.
Okay, so when we went through the specification process, we had an initial idea of what we wanted our color palette to be. When we spoke with the Nichihara representative before we bid the project, we understood that a custom color was available at enough charge. As we've sent out the specifications, what I typically like to do is not go proprietary on a specification, so i.e. saying there's only one vendor. So what we did is we wrote a performance specification for a fiber cement panel siding with color as selected. So as we come back and the project is developed, now we have the color that we had looked at was a light gray color. There are actually only 2 standard colors available from Nichihara. One you have in front of you, which is the blue indigo color. Another option would be an ivory color. Just so you have a sense of where we're talking about, this is a rendering of the building. The lower, the gray portion, the lower portion, that's going to be the masonry. And that's basically what you have there as a shadow color, was what we had previously selected or initially selected as that color. The middle, basically from that panel up to the bottom of the rooftop, it would be the fiber cement siding. So that's what we're talking about, the color.
That would be this kind
Which
of
would be that
bluish.
material, yes, sir. And then the other material colors you'll have, the windows will be basically a mill finish aluminum, so like you see on a typical storefront. And then there's a few accent panels up on the top, which are gonna be a corrugated mill finish aluminum siding. So that's kind of the color palette. And then the metal sample you have is roughly the color that we selected for the roof panels at this point, and for the fascia, the gutters, things along that line. So the option would be if we wanted to go with the light gray color as a custom color, that's basically the at cost of charge. I discussed with the general contractor that I would say there was a little, we had talked about it, it wasn't codified, so in the interest of fairness, I don't think it was something they necessarily should have 100% had in their bid. So I didn't feel like it was fair that they would have to eat the cost on that color. So what we have there is basically at cost for that custom color. That being said, we don't necessarily have to go with the custom color. We can modify the color palette, or we can go with one of the standard colors. Let's see if this will pull up here. Unfortunately, I don't have a sample of the standard for the ivory right now, but this is from the Nichihara website. You can see that is the indigo color, and this right here, that's kind of a look of the lighter or the ivory. So my suggestion would be, I'm not sure that, if I go back to the color palette here, if you'd like to think about, I don't typically pick colors, but I can make suggestions on what kind of tones work. Keeping a little bit darker on the base and going to a lighter color up above, I think would work. I think that the ivory is probably a good fit, and particularly in the context of the courthouse close by. We didn't want to get something that was exactly that, but we would want something that also wasn't trying to be too far off from it. What we can do is get a sample of the ivory for verification, but at this point, I feel like the ivory would be a reasonable option to go with the standard color. And you can see, we're just looking at general scales, even just from a simple computer rendering. I'll leave that totally up to you. I think the gray would look really sharp as well, but I don't know if I can push for the extra
So,
$10,000.
It's ivory blue or $10,000.
Yes, sir.
Those are choices.
Those are the choices.
I like ivory for not $10,000.
If this were Jeopardy, I'll take ivory for 10,000.
That's right.
So what I would suggest is that we can do is hold this for now. We can get a sample of the ivory, and I also just sent them a note to ask, we'd initially talked with the mason about, having that shadow for the base color. There's a ton of other color options there. Perhaps a lot of times it's easiest to do is go back to what is the smallest box of crayons and work our way out from there. So obviously in this case, the siding is the limiting color, or could be the limiting color for the cost. And then we can adjust the masonry and then potentially even the roof color, if that's the direction we wanna go with that. So we wanna,
Does it hold us up any in terms of time frame to hold on to this and decide in a little while?
no, not necessarily. If we said we absolutely wanna go with the custom color, then I would say we do need to go, because it's a 3-week lead time to get the verification sample, and then it's a 12-week lead time to get the custom color. So that's also looking on the scale. The goal was to start putting siding up.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to go with the custom color. I'm not crazy about the 10,000, but I'm less enthralled by the 15 weeks. It sounds like that we could be adding to the schedule.
And that's where, we know we did discuss colors earlier on, so it's coming around at this point. They were getting a little bit of push on schedule, which I wasn't going to hear that. But, if the ivory is an acceptable color, I say let's look at the other colors, make some modifications there if we need to, but stick with the standard
Could you
color.
pull that picture of the ivory up again, Mike, on the website?
Do we even need to hold up, or can we just tell you ivory today?
You can just tell me ivory today and we'll make the rest of it work.
Back with ivory today, folks.
How long, how long would it take to see a sample?
I'm hoping we can get one here right after Thanksgiving. I sent a note over to the general contractor this morning.
If that's not gonna hold us up, I would feel more comfortable seeing it, because that ivory may be, a completely different ivory than what we see versus.
The sample's
in
gonna
our
be like
hand.
this, just the ivory color.
Exactly.
I'm not good enough with color to be able to imagine, having a more, a sample do me any better.
Well,
Imagine.
really,
You wanna
everything
write
else, all your other palette, you haven't acquired materials yet. You don't know that the mason's bought or the roof or any of that. So you have the opportunity to adjust that whole palette.
Everything goes with ivory.
That's right.
Oh, listen to you.
So we'll take a look at that.
That's a good
So,
color.
I think that's a good way to go. Let's go with the ivory. We'll look at the other colors, and if there's something, Sherry and I will, make an adjustment if we need to, and we'll report back. But for the time being, sounds like the direction is find ivory and then let's make it work.
Yeah, I'd look at it and put a color palette together and make sure it's kinda in keeping with the area. But I just don't want I don't want lime green, but.
I just think that we should at least look at it, or at least you have an opportunity to make sure, that way we're doing our diligence to make sure that it's not an ivory that we think is an ivory, but it may be gray for them, or, cherry white, or I don't know, something.
And I think anything that we lean towards an ivory or gray is gonna be very close. We had a very, very light gray color selected, so I think that's a fine choice. Okay, we'll get back to you, and thank you and I think when we talked to the rep, $10,000 seemed like a larger upcharge than I would have expected for the custom color, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Okay, so we will go with ivory, and we'll be back with the color palette as soon as we have that sample.
Alrighty. 5D is discussion and possible decision on a request from the city of Muscatine for the county to contribute $1,000 toward the $3,000 fee charged by One House Partners for a research and literature review of leading community development approaches.
All right, so I'm bringing this to you kind of as more of a public interest advocate for neighborhood revitalization, affordable housing initiatives, things along that line. So I've been in conversations with the city of Muscatine. MCSA has been kind of floating around for a while in different guises and different forms. Additionally, I've been in conversation with people in West Liberty, also the city of Wilton, also looking at similar types of issues in their towns and how to address these. So we had a meeting with MCSA and City of Muscatine and some other interested parties a couple of weeks back, just trying to think about how do you even start with something like this, which is a massive problem, rental affordability, first-time home buyers, home affordability, many different issues and items. And it just seemed like we need a little bit of organization to even get started with this. The recommendation was to look at a literature review or just kind of look at benchmarking what are best practices by other communities of, our kind of size and similar situation. And I think that's what can extend not just the city of Muscatine, but again, it's a similar problem that we're seeing throughout the county. And the idea here would be have One House Partners, who is the business of a person I was in grad school with, is a graduate of the Urban and Regional Planning Program at the University of Iowa. Essentially, she would go and start to look and see what programs are out there, how other towns are doing this type of work, and then start to identify funding opportunities, particularly there's state funding, there's federal funding, but essentially put together a palette of here's all the possibilities. And then based off of that, to make some recommendations on what could be a good fit for Muscatine. Initially the city of Muscatine, but then also same types of resources that could extend out to other communities and potentially even into the county. The idea here being, and the reason that Jody from the city of Muscatine made the request to do kind of a sharing and make this a group project is due to, obviously the city of Muscatine has probably the majority of some of the affordable housing in the county, but it's also kind of serving other residents of the county in general. The goal here would be just to start to get things sorted out, to figure out what then could lead into maybe a larger approach, larger project or programs that wouldn't necessarily just benefit the city of Muscatine, but then we could also take this same document and this could be used by potentially, Wilton Economic Development, or potentially we lead other communities in and around the.
Yeah, I had a meeting with some concerned citizens last week, another group, around this same thing, and I think this is, I don't look at this as the dollars. I think 1,000 of the 3,000, even the study is different if you looked at some of the other housing studies that have been done. But I think this is I'll give you an opinion. In my opinion is that, rural counties such as ours, rural cities, Muscatine is not a large city. We have Wilton and West Liberty that are struggling with the same kinds of things. We're having trouble attracting and keeping our talent in town, and we're seeing degradation of our neighborhoods, and that comes to our tax base. And so I think the city of Muscatine, I think Jody and the group, the whole point isn't necessarily the money, it's the show the support of the county for these efforts, that we have, our communities are we're struggling a little bit. I think you guys heard me talk before about some of the research done at Bi-State on the commute patterns in the region, in the what do they call it, MSA. I was just in the workforce development thing, and they're looking at labor sheds, and one of the things I see, I'm kind of a statistician, so you gotta watch me a little bit, but what happens is they have this whole roll-up strategy. So they look at everything based on an MSA, which is a metropolitan statistic area. Well, the problem with that is that's an assumption, right? And that's the assumption that drives all economic activity. So if you looked at that, Muscatine's a bedroom community of the Quad Cities. Well, that's not in fact true if you look at the commute patterns. We have a tremendous number of people that drive into this county every day, and this becomes our primary source of income. Well, when they leave our city at night, that is a detriment to our communities. It's a detriment to our schools. It's a detriment to our all the activities, our retail establishments. And I think that we're a tired old river towns. We're some of our smaller communities, and what can we do to help with this whole process? And I think it's try to find something actionable. I think I hearken back to for the 10 years I've been on this board, or 10 plus. We had those funds we had setting, and we tried to get people to come up with great ideas to utilize them, and we never did. Nobody could ever come up with anything, and I think this is an opportunity. It's $1,000, yeah, and it's all, we all know you always have budget challenges, but at some point, there needs to be a partnership by organizations to say, it's not just the city of Muscatine's problem, it's not just the county's problem, it's not just a school problem. We all have to get together and kind of put our heads together and figure out how are we gonna stem this tide. Because I don't think it's good for our communities if we become a bedroom community. You want to be able to have some retail that's vibrant and alive. You don't want to, yeah, it's nice if you can just walk next door and get a haircut, but sometimes you need to buy a screw too, and if you can't do that, that's a problem.
What do we know about One House Partners?
So I will basically I'll make the reference for one house. So Jasmine Frias is the founder, and she would be working, I would say, closely with me. So I helped her to kind of put this together. Again, my interest here is to try and get this going. I think she would be a good fit. If you look at similar studies to this with larger, national firms, if you will, you're probably looking at tens of thousands of dollars. I know Jasmine is trying to get herself started. So the idea here would be to get her the initial, get her rolling on this. I have an idea of where a lot of the pieces come from, but then I'll more or less be working with her to make sure that we get this crafted to a document that's going to be of value for us moving forward. In my experience working in the planning program in Iowa, is the stuff that comes from the students there is about 10 times better quality than anything that comes from large consulting firms. Jasmine is very recently off of that, so that's the same mindset that she's in right now. So I will say that personally, there is a little bit of mentorship aspect to this to try and help get her going, but I'm also familiar with her work, both in student and some of her professional work. I think she'd be a really good fit for this type of project.
And I'll pitch in that I've seen now 3 studies done. Wilton had a study done, and Mike did it. And when I was on the Economic Development Board, I saw the results of that. West Liberty had some work done, and Muscatine had some work done. And far and away, I will say that the work that I saw Mike present, and I believe Jasmine helped you with that as well, was the most actionable work that I've seen. Was, kind of common sense. It wasn't just like, well, this is what they do, this is what they do, this is what they do. They actually translated that to here's your problem, very specifically, and here are some ideas that others have done that, and how they've tried to address that problem. So I thought it was, I read through the large one here in the Muscatine community, and I couldn't find anything I could take action on. It was a lot of great information, but it was kind of like Mike said, it was just I found it more of just a mind dump, rather than here's 5 or 6 specific things that you could do to really address, or potentially address. It might not work.
Would we, as the county, be owners of the co-owners of the deliverables as well?
Absolutely, we could certainly work that out.
Yeah,
Want to make
I
sure
want
that.
for sure.
Yep, absolutely. We'll make sure that copies are delivered to the county as well.
So is the city paying the other 2
The
though?
city would pay the remainder of the cost. Yep.
I actually think maybe we should approach the schools and see if we do a triple. Yeah, don't. No, I think that, to me, it's an opportunity for the whole community, and the more people and the more organizations that buy into it, and sometimes that's financial contribution, the more opportunity you have to move the ball. Because kind of, what I see is the answer to everything is, to do TIFs and all this stuff, which just hurts other elements of our community. So I think we have a bigger opportunity here to look at it.
Is this mainly driving affordable housing? Is that the main drive here?
I would, not necessarily, and I don't even want to use that, so we'll call it workforce housing, but I think what the initial conversation is to look at what are the options out there for, more or less neighborhood revitalization and first-time home ownership. That's what I would imagine would be one of the big pieces that would come of this. There's a lot of communities that, in places I've been, that will help first-time home buyers, either if they're low to moderate income, or if they're just straight out of young professionals, with either you buy a home and they'll pay a certain portion of that if you agree to stay in the home for 5 years at least, things along that line. That's really what we're trying to sort out, because there's a lot of, hey, this worked great over here, or that worked okay over here. What we want to do is find, okay, how about in a community that's similar situated to, Muscatine has, 1,000 or so, as Jeff said, people a day drive into Muscatine, go to work, and then drive somewhere else to go home. Some of those go to the county, but like Jeff said, some go to Quad Cities, some go to Iowa City. If you can get, create an environment or create an opportunity here for people to want to come and stay, either in or right around the city, then I think that's a net win. So I would say at this point, the idea of a literature review is not necessarily to jump to a conclusion of we are just going to focus on this or that, but I think when we're really in our conversation with MCSA and the city is what can we do to look at this as a holistically as a possibility for improvement. One of the things you do run into, particularly in a hot housing market or very low availability, is that the lower end of the market prices are actually getting inflated, which is pushing your basically workforce out of the ability to even buy a home, and the homes that are being bought are lower quality and higher price. So the idea would be here, how do we, kind of stop that, not necessarily stop that trend, but make sure that if something is going at a certain price point, that there is quality there. Then looking at what are some key places that we can start to make it an anchor for revitalization and improvement, looking at neighborhoods in general, so.
Yeah, I think that the whole notion is it's about leadership, and it's about visioning the communities and the communities we live in as we move forward. And, again, this group, I met with a group last Friday, and they challenged me a bit on a few things, and said, what is government's role and what does government do? And we have some issues. I think anybody that's in tune at all with our workforce now knows that we have childcare issues. It's becoming a real burden. We see that with our employees, I think, somewhat, but depends on the demographics of your employment. We know we have issues in our own community keeping our seniors here, because, I harken back to here a few weeks ago when we had the poor gentleman living in Washington State, and his father, elderly father here, and he's trying to monitor him, and I can remember as I grew up, I had elderly neighbors next door, and I think that's not as much a reality anymore. As this group said, could we see a neighborhood there where you could live your whole life in that neighborhood? You go to this local school, you'd have a place, maybe not in the same house, but maybe move down the street to
Now
a
you
more
are the
appropriate.
elderly neighbor.
Now I am the elderly neighbor, yes, Nathan, I know that. So, that is a fact. So I think that's, it's about painting that vision. And, what's always been, to me, impressive about Muscatine County, these communities, is if you paint the picture, the community does a great job of making it happen. So.
So, Mike, I'm all for this. How would we be branching it out towards our county, cities, West Liberty, Wilton, the outside counties, even potentially Fruitland, things like that? How do we branch that out? I mean, because it seems like this is gonna be a big focus on Muscatine, but I wanna know how. I mean, I'm hoping, or would it be a second amendment, or would we be adding to it later on to get that value? Because when you talked about the Wilton, actionable items, I want it to be personable towards those cities as well too, and I don't know if that's gonna be enough with the 3,000 for as much time she may have on this.
Sure. I think that part of it is, you have someone who is talented and hungry, so I'm not concerned about the fee all that much. I think if we, one of the big goal of this, with the recommendations and the programs that are available, is to have things that would, for example, there are actually programs that, everything outside of Muscatine can take advantage of, that City of Muscatine cannot, because the City of Muscatine is excluded from USDA rural development. However, smaller communities like Fruitland, West Liberty, Muscatine, they are eligible for some of those things. And there's occasionally money or low interest, grants, things like that available, particularly for senior housing or things along that line. That's something that we'd certainly talk to Jasmine about, rolling those things in. But the other things that are, maybe Iowa Finance Authority is the other in-state option that has essentially funds available for more or less all sorts of housing initiatives, anything housing related comes through IFA from a state level. Those are things that could be universal, whether it be a larger, but they may be more appropriate to a larger. So what we can do is have, as she puts the report together, is what would be applicable to towns of the different sizes. And I have information on the other towns that I can help her with, and that's what we'll do, is send her as much she has to begin with. And, and I think that the expectation was set that the scope of this was gonna be a little bit larger with the county. I don't anticipate that being a huge issue, but what I see is, let's figure out what all the potential sources and, how programs have worked, and then we can say, okay, this is gonna be appropriate to this community, that'll be appropriate here. And even if we don't have an absolute answer to everything, we'll have enough start that we can really start to focus in. The problem being is you start to look at a project like this, and there's just so much out there, where do you even begin? Am I gonna go after a community development block grant? Am I going after Main Street? Where am I going? So what we want her to do is to look at who's out there, who's been successful with this, and what programs have they used.
Okay. Well, I make a motion to make that approval.
Santos has moved, is there a second?
I would second it.
Jeff seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All ayes, motion passes. Great.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
And other, anything else?
I think that's it. I'm actually gonna scoot out here and run across the street to meet Oscar at the courthouse, and we may have some other next time we get together, so.
Sounds good. Thank you,
Uh,
Mike.
Thank you very much. My deliverable to you, as soon as we get a tan or the ivory color sample, we'll review the color palette and get back to you guys with a recommendation. But I think we're in good shape and appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, everyone.
Item number 6, items with County Engineer Keith White, discussion and, item A is discussion and possible action to award the bid for a bridge replacement project on 120th Street. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning. You have the, should have had the apparent bids in your packet, which in the case of the box culvert, Dotton Bridge and culvert was the red low, which are the actual numbers as provided by the DOT. I do have the detailed tabs if you want to see them now or later. 12 pages on that one.
Any takers?
No.
We're good.
So,
Looking for a motion to approve the low bid here.
I would make the motion.
I'll second it.
Jeff has moved, Santos has seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the low bid, I believe from Iowa Bridge and Culvert in the amount of $266,037.70, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All ayes, motion passes. Alrighty. 6B is discussion and possible action to award the bid for the PCC paving project on G28 from near US 61 to Independence Avenue.
and you see there, Peterson Contractors was the red low, and in fact, the low at $5.9 million. And again, I have the detailed bids here, there's 36 pages, if you wanna review it now or later. Again, the DOT, you know, never tells us their estimate. We know ours, and I will simply state it's in the neighborhood of ours. So we had several good bids.
How thick is that concrete we're gonna be pouring for that?
8-inch nominal.
So I'll move to approve.
Jeff has moved to approve the low bid by
I'll
Peterson
second it.
Contractors, Santos has seconded. And this is a bid in the amount of $5,938,143.28. Any further discussion?
Just one last question. When are we gonna be starting that? When would that be going into the spring of next year?
Well, at the moment would be no idea, once we get a contract. I didn't bring the proposal with me on when their late start date is, but we would expect they're probably starting in the spring.
Okay, and that would be a full year's of, or 2-year project, or how long?
No,
would this
it'll be probably a 3-month project, 3 to 4 month project, so hopefully they get started in early enough in the year to be done. There's a lot of non-paving on this project. That's why Peterson is not even a paver, but they are the prime. High odds that your second bidder is gonna be your paver as a subcontractor. We don't know that either. We'll find, when they file contract documents, we'll see what their subcontracts are.
And
Proposed
then you'll have like a
subcontract.
pre-construction meeting, Keith, that'll
Yep.
come up.
So,
And then, so really schedule after that pre-construction.
that's when we'll really know, and if they want that meeting early in the spring, then we'll know they're wanting to get going early. There's a lot of work out there. Some of our normal bidders didn't bid because they've already taken millions and millions of work elsewhere.
Just for the public, how many feet are we looking at that we're doing on this 61 to Independence Avenue?
Oh.
lengthwise, is it a quarter of a mile, is it a?
Oh, no, without the map in front of me, I'm gonna misspeak on the miles, you know, it's like 6.4, something like that. It's miles.
Yep, no, I just
Typical,
wanted to try
about
to,
$1 million a mile.
that's what we wanted to try to share, just that we talked
Yeah.
about before, to make sure that the length and width and how much we're doing.
I don't think it's, the length is on the detail.
Yeah, it runs clear up Independence.
I didn't bring the plans.
One of the discussion pieces that we had mentioned, I think before, was when we start getting into that construction phase, is making sure that the contractor is, providing lights for vehicles to pass and not having, so when they do one lane of the road, they're not just saying, okay, pass intermittently, you have a lighted signal when they do it.
I don't believe there's any lighted signals on this project.
For the contractor, so that when vehicles are passing, how do we provide safety for?
I think in most phases of this project, the whole road will be closed for
Okay.
that section.
So then that's what I was asking.
Now, that doesn't mean Jeff can't drive in there when he's not supposed to, but, this is all phased out, so it's not a maintained traffic
Okay,
situation. When it is, it'll be 2 lanes. Now, that doesn't mean, again, in the work zone, there might not be somebody driving through, typically they're flagging if they're doing that.
so they would be flagging, okay.
The one and only time we've ever done signals was when we were doing shoulders on Zachary out by the steel mill. And that required it be 1 lane to maintain traffic.
Okay. All right.
Well, the biggest problem is gonna be on the east end of it,
Right.
with the amount of housing there and the amount of hills. Once you get to Funk's Hill on west, it's limited housing, in that situation. The biggest issue that I can see is going to be, if they're doing much work in the springtime, planting time, would be, big farm equipment movement, but they'll get that worked out.
What is a possibility, I said the project's all phased out, they're told to bid it that way. We had some inquiries during the proposal process. All the inquiries go to the DOT, not to us, about different phasing, and that's something, when we get that pre-con, we might have a contractor say, we want to do it this way. We had that with the Fruitland project. And that's not to say they wouldn't propose something that involves signals or something else, but I think the odds are high it'll be constructed as designed.
We had a motion on the floor.
Yeah.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All ayes, motion approved. Item C, projects update.
And a quick update, just covering these projects, the DOT now does everything in a multi-phase software product called, and this phase is Doc Express, where they upload the contract, contractor signs the contract, electronically gets a hold of, gets his bond up there, gets his certificate of insurance, his subcontracts up there. We, the engineer's office, look at it and advance it, and at that point, the chair is asked to come and sign electronically. At the moment, it truly seems like we've taken what used to be a simple product involving paper and made it quite complicated. But just so you know, that's how this gets to become a contract going forward. And I also wanted to mention, here's $5.9 million worth of work that's not part of our local budget. So that's what 75% or more of our normal local budget, but that all happens in Ames. And it happens to involve federal dollars and our Muscatine County state dollars. So, again, the only time you really see these things are at the time of the 5-year program, and when we bring the plans to you, and now, that's kind of the times you see them, but the $6 million worth of work is a lot of work. You know, the construction, so, but does not flow through the local budget, never has, probably never will, so. That's just an informational item too. So, other project updates, I don't have a lot other than in the design phase. We do have the additional driveway parking area out at our office designed. Plans are done. What we had mentioned before, and I want to do a final check here, is we had interest in extra work ordering that under our other parking lot project. I think it saves time and money. We're below $500,000. Don't want to give our estimate away too far. But I want to hear if you're still all okay with that, or if you want us to go to 11.
Discussion?
Well, you know, we competitively let the last work, and
Yeah.
that's where we talked about, we know we got pretty competitive pricing, it was a highly competed bid, and I think we were happy with the work of the contractors, I don't, you know.
Yeah. I think if we let it, I think you're just gonna see higher numbers. I mean, dollar-wise, I think it's in our best interest to change order it.
Yeah, I think contractors are really busy, we saw that with the jail project where you get, and I think your numbers are bound to creep up, and if we can do it with a change order, I think we're probably gonna save money.
I'm good with the change order.
Other than that, not much new in the projects world. And then I wanted to give you a brief update on the Mid-American Fiber project. There's 2 routes on this map, the east to west and the north-south route. Where it's highlighted is where they have plowed in cable so far. It's our understanding that all of the bores are completed, or the rebores are completed, where they put them in the wrong place. We had, as I'd mentioned before, we've spent a lot of time on this big project, and I have instructed Brian in my office, Brian Warshawski, to contact them, which he has, and tell them we're charging them from here on out. They don't seem to have heartburn with that. I encountered their work last week, and I'm concerned this time of the year, so we're gonna have to really keep an eye on them, or you're gonna have citizens calling you up and saying, why are we tearing the hell out of our roads or our ditches? And so we plan they wanna do it all yet this year. They're better weathermen than us. They say it's gonna be great after Thanksgiving. They're also, we've told them, there will be restoration clearly involved. Again, I was actually out to look at a piece of road for a different reason. I'm going, what's this muddy mess? It's them.
Are we taking any pictures of that?
Yes, but we think, again, they seem more than willing to open their pocketbook, and I'm not picking on them at all, but, because they've been very cooperative. But like the CenturyLink one, and perhaps like some other projects that are coming, you know, we hear, oh, Homeland Security is paying for this, you know, so that means we as taxpayers are paying for it, but it seems that sky's the limit on what we spend. So just want you to know, we are going to be keeping, an eye on them, and hopefully they remain. I mean, when I encountered them the other day, I don't know how, I lost count, I don't know how many crews they had going, but they are going to town. And, where we're a gravel road, we're plowed in the road. Where we're our pavements, we're out in the right of way. Either one, this time of year can get really torn up.
Oh, we've got 2 major rain events coming in the next 10 days.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
and we may, try to shut them down. I mean, we've suggested, but I mean, they're major wanna do it. So,
So
I
they're
haven't-
paying for any damages they do to the roads or tile line.
theoretically, yes, Doug, theoretically, and we all know how that can and can't work. I'm really expecting some farmers in the future to say, hey, they broke my tile line, they did this, they did that, and maybe they won't. But, it's just really a bad time of the year to keep, but they have all these crews mobilizing all this spools of fiber here and that, so they wanna put it in the ground if they can. And we'll keep on, I haven't for a long, long, long time ever had to send the sheriff to stop somebody, and so hopefully we don't get to that point. That's just an update on that. It's really what I mentioned before, like I said, I think these big ones, we're gonna have to start charging them. And Brian has been very fair in if he's going out to one of our projects and just drives past them, we're not charging him for anything like that, but it's gonna probably take daily specific trips to see what they're up to. And, we did, one of the rain days there last week, we did stop them, like there's water on the road, and you're just making mud holes, so. And that's probably how we're gonna have to roll going forward on any of these bigger projects.
Well, the bottom line is these, the right of way is our responsibility. And when we permit things in the right of way, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that it's done to their drawing, to the specification. Because, we've seen time and time again, if we don't, then all of a sudden, who's the one holding the bag in the end? It's the county taxpayer, and that's not right. So, they have their own mechanisms to get their funding to do their work, and
Sure.
they need to use
The
those.
problem is, if this is next spring, and we've started a $5.9 million project and a bridge project, and we're all hands on deck, we don't have anybody to be doing this.
Right.
So in that case, we might have to hire some firm to inspect them. Because it really seemed, even though, these people have been more user-friendly than any of the others, it seems like they don't watch their stuff very well.
So let me ask you this, so when we go back and we're doing, you mentioned that they're possibly moving stuff to other areas where they normally wouldn't have, or their boring has changed again because they may have moved it 10 feet this way or whatever, it may be differently. And when they're not giving us any as-built when they're done.
Right.
So hypothetically, if we have another, project in large size that we need to start doing some directional boring, how do we locate that stuff? How do they locate fiber?
They put a.
Do they put a tracer cable on those as well too then?
Yep.
So then it would be on our responsibility to go back in there or have them help us locate it before we do that.
It would, and our permits require them to move if they're in public right of way, to move if they're in the way.
So why can't we request to get as-bills done? Because it's our
We can,
ownership, I mean.
we can probably request,
it's better than just saying, well, it's somewhere over there.
There are more crews, we're committing one engineer's time, not all of his time to this. There are more crews out there, and if they get going, they're talking on the south end and bringing in just as many crews down there. You might have 20 crews going in 20 locations. I don't know how we aren't doing the as-bills.
No,
I don't know
what I'm
how,
getting at
I don't
is
know how they're gonna get an as-built, cause they're not inspecting it. None of these utilities seem to inspect their contract.
I know, I feel we definitely need to make
I
that
mean,
request though.
I absolutely don't know, but take within the city and Power and Waters, I doubt they're getting as-bills for where that stuff goes. I highly doubt it. And it doesn't even go, I went right in front of my house, I watched, they painted, put it here, they put it over there. In the stupidest place possible. Seriously, if
Well,
it said, Keith, go out and find the stupidest place to put this, that's where it went.
Could we make that request to find out what that would take, or how much they would be able to do to help us provide, ultimately where these locates are at, as far as an as-built completed project, because it is in the right of way.
We can,
Yeah, see what they say if it's not a. And then that'll help us identify really, how far they're really off, just like you're mentioning. And why.
it's certainly true, like we've said down there on G28. We've got the plans of where the stuff's supposed to be, but nobody knows where it is.
So that's, and
And
this
odds
is-
are it's not where it says
but
it's supposed to be.
this will help us have a document maybe downstream and say, hey, we really can't run that there, this, are they running it, 2 feet deep, are they running 6 inches, are they running 34 inch, or what, yeah. Just that kind of a document, something depth and where it's located at.
Okay.
And if you stay up to the meeting, Keith, I wanna talk to you about G28 too.
Okay. Will do.
Anything else, Keith?
Not for me.
All right, anybody else have anything for Keith? All right, thank you, sir. Item number 7 is discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the November 18th, 2019 regular meeting and the November 21st, 2019 special meeting.
Move to approve.
Jeff has moved, Scott has seconded to approve both. All those in favor? Aye. All ayes, motion is approved. Item 8, correspondence. So I'm supposed to start on your end there.
I don't have any correspondence.
Jeff.
I had 2 correspondence. I met with the Hickory Hills Homeowners Association contractor, MPW, on 11/19. I'll talk to Keith about that meeting, and then on 11/22, I met with a group concerned about housing.
Alrighty, I did not have any correspondence.
I had no correspondence.
And,
I originally told Leslie I had none, and I did. I have been talking to the neighbors about the utility line, power line that's gonna be coming through, and I'll probably continue to talk to them.
okay. How about committees?
Committees, November 20th, Wednesday, was local development at noon, and November 21st, Thursday, was fair board meeting at 7.
Okay. Scott?
Wednesday the 20th, I had the Board of Health, and on the 21st, Region 9 Transportation.
Okay. Last Monday, the 18th, I had the mental health region, which I want to come back to after we're done with committees and talk about. And then Tuesday, the 19th, I had Veterans Affairs. And Wednesday, the 20th, we had Bi-State. Jeff?
On the 20th, I was out in Des Moines all day for a regional workforce board session. And on the 21st, I had the Region 9 transportation as well.
And Santos.
On the 21st, I had the We Lead meetings in West Liberty. And just wanted to mention that the city administrator is moving from the city of West Liberty to Florida. Moving on to another job, so they're gonna be doing some searching for a new city administrator. And we're setting up a meeting to meet with the city officials as well too, and the new city officials kind of meeting with the new West Liberty council. New city
Mayor and
council.
council.
yeah, the new mayor and council, kind of learning to help build new relationships with those new members coming on. And what I kind of want to jump off of that, and I know you're going to talk about the other stuff, is I think from a board standpoint, it's something that I think I'd like to have a request from us to the new city council coming in and the new school board, that we look at trying to help build more relationships with those different boards and try to have a once a year type meeting, formalized or whatever it may be, so we can start looking at how we together can work together with different goals, even just like we just talked about this new housing project, some of the new school board projects that they're doing, and then helping build those relationships. There's a lot of new city council members, there's a lot of new school board members, and we're an existing board right now that is also wanting to help build those relationships. So I think that would be something that I would want to have Nancy reach out to those different administrators and look at how do we make one meeting per year. It could be in July after budget, or it could be before, but at least for sharing of information, building relationships, and helping us all move together, because we all want to have our county continue to help housing, moving in those directions. We're doing it in West Liberty, but I think it's something that we need to be doing it as a board as well. And I'm sure that those groups would be open to that, but I would really like to see how we do that to continue to be a successful city and county. That's what one request.
With regard to at least the Muscatine School Board, we probably would want to have it after July 1st, because there's going to be a new superintendent then.
It's just something, if it's gonna be one of my requests from our goal setting as we start going into budget here in January, but it's something that I know we're doing in West Liberty, and I started really thinking about that as far as what we've been, wanting to do that, and when, as my other role in city council, but it's something that I think that we need to be doing now that we're seeing all these new members, and it doesn't hit us with a curveball, because sometimes, I see people out here looking at the new building we're putting right across here that Mike's working on. People ask, well, what are you working on? What are you doing? And we don't even know what's going on. And a lot of people would say, oh, hey, they're building a new school. Well, we don't know that, unless you're on the school board or you're probably up to date on a lot of those things, they don't, and those are all taxpayers' dollars. The more informed we are as a board on all the things that are helping on those, the better we are representing those, being stewards of the citizens' taxpayers. And so I think it's just something that from a long-term standpoint, it would be good, just from goals and budgets and understanding, because they're all parts that I think that would add value for us as a county board of supervisors. That's all I have.
I'll kind of circle back to the mental health region stuff. We met last Monday. It was an interesting meeting. This was our first official meeting since we submitted our withdrawal notice. And as you may recall, or some of you may recall, I think I circulated around, the fiscal agent, David Farmer, and the CEO had circulated a recommendation prior to that meeting that the transfer payments that we had been requesting, the amount of $311,000, they made a recommendation that those transfer payments not be collected. The reason being is they put out information showing that Muscatine has contributed over I think it was about $881,000 more to the region than it's received in regional services. Now, that amount is calculated on a per capita basis, and since services really haven't gotten geared up in Muscatine County until recently, it's actually probably a lot more than that. But in any event, there's at least $881,000 there that we've contributed more than we've obtained from the region, and they thought, well, it's only fair if Muscatine's leaving, since they're not going to be able to recoup that $881,000, to not make the $311,000 payment. Well, before that recommendation could be acted upon, Cedar County, the Cedar County representative, voted to kick us out of the region effective December 31st, 2019, 6 months before. Which, under the 2080 agreement, they have the ability to do. Now, it wasn't an agenda item, so whether it would have been proper at that time, I don't know. It was seconded by the Jackson County representative, in what I feel was an emotional display. It was calculated on emotion, and the stated reason for the motion was, well, if you're not going to pay your $311,000, get out. And I thought that was interesting, given the information that was about to be acted upon, brought by the fiscal agent, showing that we had over-contributed by the amount of by more than $500,000 more than that. So what I felt like was they're saying, well, because we can kick you out and we don't like what you've done, we're gonna kick you out and stiff you that $800,000, because it's better for the region. I was not happy about that. Now, fortunately, the Clinton and Scott County representatives, I think, were much more businesslike about it. They said, hey, is that something that's beneficial to Muscatine? We want to make sure, said the Scott and Clinton County reps, we want to make sure there's no interruption in your services. We want to make this process as extremely, or as seamless as possible. So you tell us if that works. And I said, well, I have no idea. You're catching us kind of cold with this motion to kick us out in 6 weeks. I'm going to guess 6 weeks is not enough time for us to set up and coordinate a mental health care system without money when you're going to withhold $800,000 from us that we've already contributed. So I've asked Felicia to look into possible timelines because, if they are hot and heavy to kick us out, I want to make sure that we have the quickest possible transition on tap. Now, they eventually voted the motion down. I abstained from it, but the motion was voted down. However, I think that clearly sets up clearly illustrates the atmosphere we're facing and staying in the region. The impression I got from at least 2 of the remaining 4 members is that we are not welcome. They don't like what we did, and I feel it's personal. The 2 that voted against us, or that had proposed the motion and seconded it, rather, were some of the original architects of the region, and I think for them this is personal. I continue to be a little mystified, well, more than a little mystified, that they want to kick us out for possibly not contributing $300,000 going forward. When we, A, have over-contributed, B, only 2 counties to date have made the requested transfer payments, and C, there's still a county out there that is underpaid by $1.9 million. So, but that's where we are. Felicia is continuing to work on the expectation that we will not be in the region as we have given our withdrawal. We're trying to figure out when the fastest we can get out is without any serious consequences to our people. But the fact is, we're basically looking at being asked to pay for 3 things at once. The $800,000 we've already sunk in. The $300,000 they're asking us to pay right now for services that are going to be cut, and the cost of actually providing services on our own. So it's fairly galling that they want to take action against us and basically take the money that we've contributed to the region without allowing us to recover any of the value of that. That's unfortunate. In any event, Felicia is going to be looking at what we can do. She's looking at developing our services in such a way moving forward that if and when the time comes, that it's easy for us to integrate into the SEAL region. As I said before, we still have the opportunity to reapply to SEAL. We've heard conflicting things, I think is the most charitable way to put it, from DHS and about DHS in terms of what they're recommending. And so we're trying to get our heads wrapped around that, whether, what things are true, what things are not true, what time frame SEAL does and does not have to act on our requests. So we're dealing with a lot of, frankly, I think there's a lot of political intrigue. It upsets me because the thing that we need all to be doing and should be doing is focusing on the care of our most vulnerable people. But that's where we are right now, and I wanted to make sure I gave everybody, public included, an update on how Muscatine's reaction, or how Muscatine's actions to protect our people by withdrawing from the region is being met by some of the folks in the region. I think it's disappointing, but I understand for some folks it may be personal.
But technically, we have paid up to the end of July, right? or 1st of July?
So for fiscal year 2020, the region, the fiscal agent fund of the region has requested transfers in the amount of $2 million, roughly speaking, from each of the counties. And that was allocated on a per capita basis. Our per capita share of that $2 million is $300,000. The bulk of it is to come from Scott County.
Correct.
Oh, to date, or at least as of last Monday, only 2 counties, that it was to be made in 2 installments, one in October and one in, I guess, April. To date, only 2 counties have made that transfer of whatever their first installment is. So Scott's is very large, I can't remember the amount. Jackson's and Cedars is relatively small, given their population. And Clinton's is similar to ours. Clinton would be in the same situation if they had not clawed back $1.7 million from the region. We clawed back $0.7 million, and if we had gotten another $1 million, we wouldn't be in this situation. Of course, the region didn't have that money. So the motion that was made to kick us out effective December 31st was basically made on the premise, well, you guys aren't going to pay anyway, so you aren't going to contribute like everybody else. You shouldn't be in here.
But it wasn't even on the agenda,
No.
so then it technically wasn't even.
No,
Can't be done.
it was ultimately voted down, and I abstained from it for various reasons. But yeah, it became a moot point when it was voted down.
Take action on something that wasn't on the agenda.
You can't.
You can't.
But as I said, this
Okay.
was heavily laden with emotion, and you know,
Well, I think that just provides us with the potential of needing to continue to, as you mentioned, have those conversations with Felicia.
absolutely.
Reapply again and take those steps needed to reapply, I guess, with the SEAL group, and let them understand our position, and maybe have those conversations with DHS as well too, because ultimately if DHS were to come back in and say, hey, you guys need to go back here, we can't, we're not welcome.
Well, I think, you know, one of the challenges I would have is, you know, we kinda, there's some issues that we have that need to be heard, and so that if, you know, I think we need to be prepared that if DHS says this is where you're going or you're staying, then we need to insist upon some modifications of the 2080, so that what we've seen happen can't continue to happen.
Well, absolutely,
And so I think that's, to me, it's like, you know, this is a negotiation process.
it always, you know,
I have no issue with some of the services we put in, and that, you know, I think it's been a good thing, and we've seen a savings overall in delivery of service and all that. You know, my issue is some of the funding challenges that have been created by some of the decisions made. And I think that it needs to be done differently. You know, I think we all went into it with one intention, and I don't think that intention was carried through completely throughout the region. And that's unfortunate, but, you know, once shame on you, twice shame on me. So I think that, you know, if I were to go back or stay in that region, I would have to see a change in that 2080 process.
well, that's the question. I mean, DHS has the authority to assign us to a region.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has the authority to force us to sign the 2080 agreement. And, you know, DHS has, in the form of Julie Jetter, has said, probably you get reassigned to eastern Iowa if you can't find a region to go to. And I have a couple of problems with that, especially if they kick us out. I mean, they're not gonna want us back, and we're not gonna want them back. Moreover, I think the rationale for assigning someone back to the region they left in the event they can't find a willing partner is because it's kind of like your home turf. You know, you're familiar with it, you've done it before, but the changes that are going to happen in eastern Iowa region, whether or not we're there, are going to be profound. They're completely altering their management structure, the way contracts are looked at, the way contracts are bid on. You know, it's gonna be a completely different region simply due to the necessity of the budget cuts. As a result, it's gonna be a completely different animal if we do get forced back there. We're not gonna be any more familiar with it than we would be with Seal or the East Central region, which is Lynn and Johnson County and others. So, you know, given that we are already looking to mirror the services and structures that Seal provides, I think an argument can be made that we're gonna be a lot more comparable to Seal in the next few months than we ever will be again with Eastern Iowa, so.
Well, one of the things I learned long ago is don't let the politics and bureaucracy, don't confuse that with logic. So I would absolutely have a plan
Yeah.
for both eventualities and what we're gonna do, what our actions would be, because I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know what'll happen. You know, I believe there are politics at play, and there could be, and we just need to be prepared for it. And, you know, the big bottom line is, you know, I think the region has added services here that are effective and helping, and we don't wanna lose those.
Right.
And so we just need to be careful as we move forward with this and figure it out and have a plan.
So so our plan going forward, in a couple of weeks, I know it's a Thanksgiving, it's a little weird, but a couple of weeks, Felicia's going to do her best to give us a crash course on what things look like if we do get kicked out and when, and we'll have to,
Asked to leave.
Sure. Asked to leave, voted off the island, whatever you wanna call it. You know, because it may well be in our best interest to leave earlier. I don't know, she's gonna be providing us that information, we'll need to make some decisions at that point. It may also become necessary to try and have a sit-down meeting with this Julie Jetter, maybe with our CEO, with Felicia, maybe some of our legislators. You know, we'll play that by ear and see, what events, dictate, but, yeah, we're gonna be involved in this process for a while. And hopefully, it's not going to prejudice the folks in our community for simple political reasons. So,
Thank you.
that's my report on that. Good times. Moving ahead. Item number 10, receive information from county employees.
I am.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to let you know that we did hold the recount for the Stockton mayor election on Friday, and the results, there was no change from the canvass results, so you don't.
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
All right, thank you.
So then there's no further action required, correct, by this
Nope.
board or any other?
Nope.
Thank you, Leslie.
Okay. Item 11, items with the administration office.
The only thing I have to report is that I have, for the boards and committees that have terms that expire the end of December, I have received notification of 3 people who do not wish to be reappointed to the Historic Preservation Commission. So I will be advertising for that. I have a formal resignation notice from Rosie Eichelberger on the Civil Service Commission, although she has indicated she will stay on until we find a replacement, and has given me a suggestion of someone who might be interested. So I will advertise, but I will specifically reach out to that individual and encourage them to apply. And there's another one that we have an opening for, and I can't remember which one it is now, but you'll be seeing advertisements for a bunch of them. Hopefully we'll get some good applicants and can get these filled in January.
Great.
Excellent.
Anything else, anyone? All right, if no one has anything else, we're adjourned.
Thank you.